This is Brigid
and Shannon Harrington,
and you are listening to the We Want Arts podcast, where we interview a variety of people in arts education and the entertainment industry to advocate for the necessity of arts education. Today, we have a very special guest. Isn't that right, Shannon?
Yes, we do.
So, Stephen Strouse, he was our music teacher in elementary school from, kindergarten through fifth grade, yeah. So he received his Bachelor of Music at the Westminster Choir College, and he has over 36 years of teaching experience working for the Barnegat, Pinelands, and Mifflinburg area school districts. He additionally served as the music director for Stockton University's theater department productions and for the Algonquin Arts Theater in New Jersey. We are very excited to have him, and he is one of the very first people that exposed both of us to music. Well, Mr. Strouse, thank you so much for being with us over the phone.
Yes, thank you.
I want everybody to know that I still say Mr. Strouse because he was my music teacher throughout elementary school, and to call him anything else now just wouldn't seem right to me. So thank you so much.
Right.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me today. Very excited to talk to you both again.
Well, I hope that you know how many lives you've changed as a music educator, and you certainly changed ours. So I want to ask you, what made you pursue a career as a music teacher? Where did that interest come from?
Well, my family is very musical. My mother is a singer, and she and I would do our church choir together. And all throughout my own education from kindergarten through 12th grade, I was very involved in music, and so much so that at the high school, we would have these audition choirs that would be outside of the school, a district choir, a regional choir, a state choir, and even all Eastern choir. And it was just, I was just singing all the time. And so it was actually my choir director at one point. It was getting to be 11th grade, and my first goal was I was going to be a teacher. I was going to be an elementary teacher. And that coming from my sister and I, when we were playing, we would always play school, and we would always have a lot of fun doing that. And so when I said that to my choir director at one point, she says, "How are things going for your college picks?" I said, "Oh, I'm thinking about going for elementary." And she stopped dead in her tracks and said, "You do know that you can teach and do music together?" I said, "Well, yeah, but I didn't." And then in the process, she taught me, showed me how I could make a career out of being able to do the two things that I love to do most, which was teach and to do music. For me, at that point, it was singing and playing piano, because I wasn't an instrumentalist. I was playing piano. So that's kind of how it brought me to music, not to music, but to music education, I should say. So it was kind of a little nudge from my church choir director in that direction, and having a musical background through my family, and being encouraged to be involved in it while I was in school.
Right. And you've taught music to students of all ages in public schools. And after teaching at Horbell Elementary, where we first met you, you then moved to Pinelands High School. And I remember when you left, everyone was very sad, but also supportive. And we organized a ceremony for you in the gym. And I think that just shows how much you impacted everyone. But you've definitely taught music to children of all ages. And so I want to know from your experience, how does the way in which a student engages with music change as they grow older? I mean, obviously they must get better, but how do they get more timid as well?
Actually, it's quite interesting. There was at one point when I was at Horbell with you two, that it was during what we call the musical season, when the high school musicals are doing their shows. But I was also at that point working at Stockton. So there was, my teaching assignment also had me at the Bracton School, which is the middle school. So there was one day that, or a couple of days, I should say, that where I literally started, or had from the beginning of the day till the end of my work day, I had gone and taught pre-K all the way through to college, and experienced all of those in one specific day. There's I have to just say it just intensifies as you get into the older grades. Because I'm still teaching privately, and so to see students actually choose to go from being exposed at the elementary schools and trying to impact a love of music and an understanding of what it is that's in your head, but you can't see it except on paper, and how to make those paper things turn into something that sounds beautiful. To finally see students take that and make it into something beautiful on their own and have the desire. So I think the drive would be the one thing that differs from the younger grades all the way into the college level, where students decide that this is what they want to do and they come to you asking for help, rather than like at the elementary school where everybody's exposed to it for a certain amount of time every week, and to give them the opportunity to understand or ignite a fire in themselves, if they will, for this music thing that we all love to do or not do. But it's really neat to. I can't say that there's one level in all of that is more enjoyable, because I really have enjoyed. I really have been exposed to all those levels, and each of them has their own exciting part to play,
right,
in the progression of education. I mean, it's just as exciting to see little. I don't know if you girls remember that when I would meet you at the door with my djembe drum, and we would be doing our marching to get that beat in your body and internalize and stuff. Their eyes of those kindergartners coming to my class and hearing that drum and being so excited to walk in is just as exciting as watching one of my college students tackle a really difficult Broadway tune and really dig into the character and vocal aspects of it. So I've really been fortunate in that way to be able to see the whole gamut of students and the educational realm, and each of them has their own gem of something that I look forward to when I get the opportunity to see those different ages.
Well, and speaking of the activities that you would do for, say, elementary schoolers, and of course we both remember that the drum. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the benefits of receiving a strong music education in, say, elementary school. So one of my earliest memories in your class was probably when I was either a kindergartner or in first grade, and I remember you were teaching us like simplified music theory, and you did it in such a way that we didn't really know that it was music theory, but you showed us a variety of quarter notes, whole notes, and rests on a staff, and certain sounds were assigned to each symbol, like ta or tt, and besides helping me read music later in life, those exercises also helped me in other ways. And although I didn't realize it at the time, those exercises really helped me with, my rhythm, body coordination, and especially counting. And so what's the purpose of teaching that kind of music theory to, or would you call it music theory? Like, what's the purpose of teaching that in elementary school?
It's a methodology that we use. I use a couple different methodologies that I blended together, but I used one that was a Hungarian, Zoltán Kodály, was what I used mostly in my classroom, but we occasionally used the Karl Orff method, which was a German way of thinking. It was all about being active in your body or in your ears or in your brain, while, like you said, you didn't realize it at the time. What we were doing was internalizing, or what we call audiating, the sounds in your body. And whether you realized it or not, your body was giving back to me as the teacher. I see that, or I hear that correctly. That was my way into your brain, how your brain was processing. So it's a methodology, but it's based on folk songs and music that comes from the cultures, and trying to find the beauty in those simplistic tunes, and then to try to understand what is the main puzzle, which then expands to form and how things are put together, and that's where the theory gets into composing and so on and so forth. So it's the beginning stages of awakening, if you will, your mind to accept the sounds and the physicalization of what the rhythmic pulses mean, and trying to mend that rhythmic and melodic part together to make what we have, what we call music. And what we did, even at that level, was make music. It might not have, to somebody from the outside world, might seem very simplistic, but for those like you and others and myself who were performing it, it was quite a process to get from point A to point B, and but not just to get from point A to point B, but to understand what was going on, to really, not to just perform, but to really understand and study it on a level that you could understand at that point.
Right. And in a way, it's almost kind of like teaching a student to read and write.
Absolutely. It absolutely was. In fact, one of the it wasn't ever given to me as a task by my administrators, but one thing that I tasked myself with was being able to track for reading, being able to track from left to right as you normally would read, or to be able to think about. There's multiple areas, not just reading, but reading was a big area that was there. But there's also the mathematical component, like you said, with the counting. So I really took to task that we weren't just singing. We were doing an academic version, in a fun way, an academic version of all of the areas. And by doing what we were doing, it was supporting what you were doing in the classroom as well.
Right. And actually, another one of my favorite memories in your music class was when you would get up and sit at the piano and play a chord that signaled the beginning of one of our favorite musical theatrical games called Blackout. And for those of you who might not know what that is, Blackout is a game that is inspired by the New York City electrical blackout of 1977, where certain sounds on the piano require the students to complete specific tasks like forming groups, and failure to do so results in their elimination one by one. Now, I remember whenever you played that opening chord, everyone thought that was just as exciting, if not more exciting, than recess. So why do you think students liked it so much, and why did you have us play that game?
I think part of it was just the fact that you weren't coming to another class to sit at a desk and do more work. You were coming there to be inspired or to be excited, just kind of like when you went to gym class, you were going there to move your body and to get going. And the component of the competition, kids are just by nature competitive with each other. And that's sometimes that can be a bad thing, but in this particular case, we used it in a good way. So mainly, it was actually twofold why I used that game, was mainly to get you excited and to get you motivated and to have fun. And sometimes it did go a little too far. We had to pull back a little bit. But it was also to have you associate numerous. Now, if you remember back to when we played that game, there were probably about 15 different sounds that you had to remember and respond without a verbal cue. So meaning with no one telling you, now you do this. You heard a certain melodic pattern, or you heard a certain chord, as you said, and it instantaneously connected you to what your body was supposed to physically do, again, in a fun way. And that's basically, other than that, it's just other than to get your creative juices flowing. It was usually used at the beginning or the end of a class as a reward sometimes, or as a motivation for the class. If we were going to have something that was a little bit more challenging, I would do that to get your energy out a little bit, and to excite you for about what you were going to do. So it wasn't just one thing. There's kind of a basic structure to that particular game, but it wasn't just one thing that I would use it for. Sometimes I would use it for numerous different things.
Well, I want to touch briefly, and just one last question to leave you with here. So I want to touch briefly on the work that you do in the arts outside the classroom. You mentioned your involvement with the Stockton University Theater Department productions, and you're specifically with musicals. You're the musical director at the Algonquin, one of the musical directors at the Algonquin Arts Theater, where you work with, I'm sure, many adults, seniors, and young adults. So we've talked about the benefits of engaging with music for children and college students, but I want to know, what are the benefits of staying engaged with music past school, past even, say, college?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I mean, just the enjoyment of being involved and being up on that stage, receiving, because they're all volunteers, so no one's on the stage is being paid, and except we would have at Algonquin, we say occasionally we'll have an equity actor that will come in, but most times it's all people that are just volunteers from the community, and they're just physically staying involved and being on the stage. If you're involved in the dancing part of it, or even just being on the stage and physically being there in that space, it just helps you put more depth to your life. In what I would think, by your daily work, and then having something to look forward to in terms of going to a rehearsal. And then it's really exciting because they really do put out the effort to put really, really high quality on the stage. And so they don't cut too many corners. And so we engage with a full 16-piece orchestra. So for me, for them, I think it's just that community, that feeling of being involved in something bigger than yourself. And it doesn't even have to be in any kind of principal role. Being involved in an ensemble sometimes can be just as exciting as being involved in something, having a principal role, maybe even more so, because you don't have the pressure of remembering all the lines and blah, 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 blah. But it's just refreshing. It's a lot of hard work, but it's so refreshing to take, and in a short period of time of 6 to 7 weeks, put something up there that just people want to come to watch live. And that's what I'm probably missing the most now, is being able to create things, music, art, theater, live right now because of our situation that we're in. But it's that, I think, is really why people continue past their high school years and college years, for that matter, to just seek out things that excite them and keep them inspired and keep them motivated in their life and wanting to do something bigger than themselves at that point and create art.
Well, Mr. Strouse, thank you so much for being with us here today.
And thank you for everything that you've done for us and for everyone else in our community. Thank you for exposing us to music. We're so grateful for everything that you've done for us.
Well, thank you very much. Also, you have to realize that what you give back as well to me is just as important as what I've given to you. And I think I say that an awful lot when I'm doing my teaching sessions, whether it's a private voice student or whether I'm with an ensemble, is that it's just as important for me. I get just as much out as what you get out of it. So I thank you for having me here with you today and giving me the opportunity to have been in your lives and made a difference.
The We Want Arts podcast, hosted by me, Brigid Harrington, and produced and edited by my sister, Shannon Harrington. Original music by Shannon Harrington. If you haven't done so already, follow Broadway Arts Reach on Facebook and check out our website at broadwayartsreach.org. That's Broadway ARTSREACH. Also, follow my sister and I on our social media pages on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you'll be back soon.